His first love came back to the country. He quickly drew the line with me. The contract signed. This is to wrap up the last 3 years. Don't look for me anymore. Looking at the long list of figures on the contract, I signed it and left decisively. Later, Charles went crazy begging me to come back. I waved the marriage certificate in my hand. Charles, what you couldn't give me in 3 years, someone else gave me in 3 months. Anna came back. On my 3-year wedding anniversary with Charles. When the clock struck past 9, I cleared the table of all the food and put away the carefully prepared wine. There was an unread message on my phone from half an hour ago. Busy at work, not coming back. Eat by yourself. He's always been cold. I'm used to it, but now he's not even pretending, and I felt a little disappointed. I was mindlessly scrolling through Twitter and saw a photo posted by a wealthy acquaintance. A dimly lit, ambiguous-looking booth with a woman in the center smiling charmingly at the camera. She has fox-like eyes, slightly upturned, full of cold allure. Even when I saw her photo, I held my breath. Her name popped into my head, Anna. But then my gaze shifted to the half-visible face in the picture. The man's body was hidden in the dark, but half his face was visible, eyes fixed on Anna like a beast watching its prey, afraid she might escape. Just one look at him made my heart sink. Charles wasn't working late. He attended Anna's welcome back party. And he lied about it. Knowing and witnessing are two different things. This photo was hard to accept. As his wife, I should call and yell at Charles. Or drive over there, burst into the room, and slap him, asking if he had any shame. But I did nothing. I just sat there for a while, then went upstairs to take a shower and go to bed. Charles and I have a contractual marriage. Back then, his family was pressing him to get married, and he needed a suitable candidate, which happened to be me. But we don't even have a marriage certificate, just a flimsy agreement with our signatures. I agreed to this arrangement to conceal the sham marriage from Charles's family. In return, Charles promised to save my failing family, giving us a chance at a fresh start. My family was saved solely because of Charles. If not for him, we'd still owe millions, not knowing when we'd repay it. He's never promised me anything more from the start, nor talked about love. We just lived peacefully and harmoniously for the past few years, fooling myself into thinking we were a real couple. A ridiculous notion. I smiled bitterly. It was just wishful thinking. Charles didn't come home all night and only returned the following evening. The sky was turning dark. I had just reached the top of the stairs, opened the bedroom door, and was greeted by the strong scent of smoke. The room was dimly lit. Charles was sprawled on the sofa, face obscured, only his tall figure visible in the shadows. He held a cigarette, the glow blinking on and off, surrounded by smoke. I was about to turn on the light when I heard him, "Come here." I paused, pursed my lips, and obediently walked over. "Why were you smoking so much?" He didn't answer. Suddenly, he grabbed my arm and pulled me into his arms. Caught off guard, I fell against his chest. As I tried to pull away, he held me tightly. "Don't move, let me hold you for a bit." He took a drag, voice husky, whispering in my ear. I bit my lip, the smell of smoke filling my senses. He asked, "Lucy, did you miss me?" "I missed you." My fingers involuntarily tightened around his shirt. Before, I would have blushed, my heart racing. I never had any resistance to him. But now, all I felt was irony. Missed me? Really missed me, and yet you'd lie to me? I thought, my eyes stinging. In the silence, I was grateful for not turning on the light. The darkness hid my expressions, masked my resentment and grief. Charles picked me up and moved towards the bed. I pushed him away. "I'm not in the mood today." He didn't respond, just stood by the bed looking down at me, eyes a little cold. I guessed he'd be annoyed. I rarely refused him and certainly not with such a lame excuse. But I truly wasn't up for it. Charles loosened his tie and left the room. "Suit yourself." I sat on the bed, watching his silhouette disappear, and didn't call out to him. Charles is never one to bow his head willingly. He's naturally noble, with an aura cultivated by power that's captivating. Coldly indifferent, restrainedly sexy, an explosion of hormones. From the moment I first saw him, I knew I had no resistance to him. Back then, my family hit a massive crisis, debt suffocating us all. I dropped out of college, worked multiple jobs, from a pampered heiress to a crushed nobody. That's when Charles found me. He's a few years older, seasoned in the business world, wearing a custom black suit that was perfectly intimidating. He sat on the sofa, took a cool glance at me, then handed me a paper. "Sign it, your family survives." "Don't, and they don't." Each word pressed down on me till I could hardly breathe. In front was hope, a glimmer of light. I held my breath, heart trembling as I signed that agreement. The next day, the company was revived, a slew of partners rushed in, my mom hugged me in tears. "Lucy, I feel guilty. Even if we went bankrupt, I shouldn't have let you sign something like that." Charles's face flashed in my mind, and I blushed. A sheltered girl who'd never been in love, meeting someone so striking during her worst times, how could I not be swayed? At that time, I didn't know. Love isn't about right or wrong, but loving the wrong person is just wrong. Charles only stayed the night and slept in the study. I went downstairs for water in the middle of the night and heard a phone conversation coming faintly from his study. His deep voice was still devoid of emotion but carried a hint of an affection even he wasn't aware of. Not sleeping, I'm in the study. I didn't touch her. Not sure what was said, but suddenly the noise in the study stopped. Just as I was about to leave, the door opened from the inside. Charles saw me, looked a bit surprised, then his eyes turned dark and cold. "What are you doing?" he asked. I felt awkward. "I was getting water," I replied. Charles stared at me, and I couldn't figure out what he meant or dare to move. Noticing the suit jacket over his arm, I asked, "Are you leaving?" He didn't change his expression. I felt a sting in my chest, wanting to ask who he was leaving for, but knew it'd be humiliating. "Be careful out there," I said. Charles gave me a long, deep look, nodded slightly, and left. I walked back to the bedroom, holding my cup, and watched the car drive off from the balcony. It felt desolate inside me. Him going to see his childhood sweetheart was no surprise. Anna and Charles were each other's first loves. Back then, he spoiled her to no end, and their love story was well known. But she left quietly, decisively, without a word. Charles, used to being the center of attention, was blindsided by the breakup, struggling to cope. Both were fiercely proud, neither willing to back down. Even when Charles knew where she was, he kept his distance for years. Anna lived flamboyantly abroad, entering the entertainment industry with a string of boyfriends. Their rivalry became public knowledge, escalating over the years. When Anna had a new boyfriend, Charles would vanish into nightlife. Anna said her most profound love wasn't Charles, so he smashed the first car she gave him in public. It went on and on like this. Even Charles's family couldn't stand it, urging him to marry, hoping it'd calm him down and also push Anna away. But by then, Charles managed most of the family assets. His parents had stepped down, so they couldn't really sway him. They had no choice but to let him be. Then came the day Anna wore a huge diamond ring on her ring finger, and it went viral. Charles was silent that night, but the next day, he found me. We announced our marriage. The news stayed on the front page for days, overshadowing anything about Anna. Charles had finally found her weak spot. Anna vanished from the public eye. Honestly, the early days of our marriage had me on edge, worried Anna would make a scene and accuse me of being a mistress, of breaking up their relationship. But more than that, I feared Charles would leave me, and then my family, the Lucis, would be doomed. Luckily, or sadly, Anna never contacted Charles, and he seemed to forget about her. He stopped the late-night smoking and drinking, toned down his sharpness, and no matter how busy, came home for dinner every day. Slowly, I let go of my initial cautiousness, growing more sincere and reliant on him in this simple yet warm life. Eventually, we started shared warmth, and he called me Lucy. His soft voice near my ear made it tingle. He began taking me to events, introducing me to friends and family, offering a sense of security. At home, he'd often pull me close, his breath low and husky against my ear. "Lucy," he'd say, "you're so good." "Lucy," he urged in that restrained, clear yet wild way, drawing me in with his presence. I got used to it, even thinking that it was my company that helped him forget Anna and want to truly be with me. Then Anna came back. It dawned on me it was all just an illusion. Even apart, they were each other's true love. And me, what was I? I sat up in bed till dawn, finally picking up my phone to dial a number. "David, are you free?" I arranged to meet David at a tea house, but didn't expect to run into Anna. In a long dress, she flaunted her perfect figure with dazzling red lips that made her captivating. Our eyes met and she seemed to recognize me. She walked over with a polite smile. "Lucy?" she asked boldly, with a friendly smile. "Alone?" David wasn't here yet. I checked the time and shook my head. "I'm meeting someone." "What a coincidence." "Me too," she laughed. "I'm meeting your husband." She said this and watched my face for a reaction. Though my fingers turned white from gripping too hard, I maintained a smile. "Really? Well, have fun then." Anna seemed taken aback by my calmness, her smile fading as she pressed her lips tight. "Aren't you mad? Last night, I shook my head, interrupting her. "I don't really know." This left Anna at a loss, as she was ready for a direct confrontation or a verbal battle. She hadn't expected my indifference. She was about to say something when a deep voice came from behind Anna. I tensed, looking over to see Charles walking toward us. He caught my gaze, pausing before quickly frowning. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I didn't dare say I was seeking help to split up his assets. I just mumbled, "Meeting someone." Charles nodded and turned to Anna. "Let's go." Anna's lips curled slightly. She glanced deeply at me, eyes filled with pity and mockery. I kept a straight face, meeting her gaze. Charles finally looked at me, expressionless. "You see it now, don't you?" he said. I blinked. Maybe my gaze was too genuine because Charles hesitated to meet it. After a moment, he only said, "It's nothing." He turned away, and I knew he was contemplating getting rid of me but hadn't voiced it yet. I realized this the moment Anna returned. Watching them head upstairs together, it hurt to say it didn't sting, but thinking of my efforts over the past 3 years, am I not entitled to some of his wealth? I dialed David's number again, urging him, "David, when will you be here?" David's an old friend, a partner at a notable law firm. Even if Charles eventually offers a fair deal, it's always good to double-check, just to ensure I stand my ground when I leave him, not letting him and his ex walk all over me. David showed up wearing a white shirt, 2 buttons carelessly undone, looking completely laid back. "Been waiting long?" he asked as he approached. I had already calmed down quite a bit and just gave him a light smile. "Not really." "What's the rush? Calling me here?" He tugged at his tie and leaned back, giving me a teasing smile. "Miss me?" I shot him a side glance. "What do you think?" The news that Anna was back in town had spread quickly. Nothing was kept under wraps. David wasn't exactly an outsider, so he must have known. Sure enough, his brows furrowed slightly as he spoke softly. "Is he trying to kick you out?" "No," I retorted, maybe trying to hold on to some shred of dignity. "I just decided I want to leave." David pondered, then smiled a little. "I can help you." I slid a contract toward him. "This is your payment." David froze for a second, then stared at me, gritting his teeth. "I don't want money." I was surprised, then broke into a sweet smile. "Even better. Thank you." David stormed out, clearly annoyed. After a while, my phone chimed with his messages. "Send me the info." I chuckled softly and sent him the prepared documents. When I went to pay the bill, the waiter told me someone else had taken care of it. I had a gut feeling it wasn't Charles. I checked my phone and saw 2 messages from David. "You actually sent it? No reward?" followed by "ungrateful little thing." I couldn't help but picture David's pouty expression, and I laughed, replying, "You'll earn it." Charles hadn't been home in 3 days. He flaunted Anna at various clubs and parties, seemingly wanting the world to know his first love was back, completely ignoring me, his long-suffering wife. The latest buzz was about him gifting Anna a limited edition luxury car. In the video, Anna, graceful in a cheongsam, opened the car door to reveal an interior filled with red roses. Charles stood beside her, gazing at her with a tenderness I'd never seen before. Anna tilted her head, lips curved. "What's the surprise for?" "I told you," Charles murmured. "As long as you come back, everything is yours." "Then beg me," she replied. Charles chuckled softly, raising her hand to his lips for a kiss, as fireworks filled the night sky. Fixated on her, he said slowly, "Anna, come back." The video ended, overflowing with admiration for Anna and praises for their love. A friend messaged me privately, "What's up with Charles? You guys aren't even divorced yet, and he's doing this?" I wanted to reply, but kept deleting my words, replaying that video instead. Watching Charles's eyes, brimming with restrained love and gentleness, something I'd never received. It's a joke. In 3 years of marriage, he hadn't smiled at me once. I naively thought he just had a cold demeanor. Turns out, I was just the wrong person for him. Charles never bowed to anyone. Our kisses were all initiated by me. But now, he's bending his knee for her, submitting himself to her. In stories, main characters go through trials but end up together. Who am I in this plot? I refuse to be the obstacle between them. I don't belong. I should step aside. When I slid the agreement to Charles, his face turned dark. I bit my lip, the words stuck silent in my throat. His gaze was so indifferent. I looked away, intimidated. After a pause, he squeezed out, "You're leaving?" I clutched my dress tightly, whispering, "Yeah." Without looking up, I could feel his eyes on me, the tension quietly growing. I shivered involuntarily. "Reason?" Charles demanded, glancing over the agreement before tossing it back. "Give me a reason." A reason? It felt ludicrous. He's publicly reconnecting with his ex and still wants a reason? Keeping my tone gentle, I hadn't yet secured my financials. I said, "Anna's back. I shouldn't be between you two. She might misunderstand." "She won't." Charles smiled faintly. "She won't misunderstand." I looked up, dumbfounded. "What do you mean?" His dark eyes narrowed slightly, a bemused expression on his face. "I mean, you don't have to leave. She won't come to the villa." It took me 3 full seconds to understand. He wanted me to serve him in the villa and have Anna outside. One man enjoying the best of both worlds. Anger and humiliation flooded my mind. Forgetting the bit of reluctance I had, I stood and snapped, "Charles, you can choose not to love me, but don't insult me." "You think this is an insult?" Charles's smirk faded, his face turning icy. I clenched my fists. "Isn't it? I've always been gentle and meek. Never had I spoken like this before." He stared at me for a moment, then suddenly laughed. "Fine, very good." He swiftly grabbed the agreement, signed it, and left without a backward glance. At the door, he paused and turned back coldly. "Lucy, outside isn't as safe as you think. Without me, you'll be torn apart." I lowered my eyes, staring at the agreement. Charles's signature was forceful, just like him. I knew what he meant, but I stayed silent. He snorted and slammed the door on his way out. Charles had said something similar 3 years ago. After those tender nights, he'd hug me and sigh, "Lucy, you're so innocent. Without me, how will you live?" I disagreed then, and I still do now. My gentle demeanor is just the surface. I am quite stubborn underneath. No one can force me to do what I don't want, not even him. Nobody is an eternal crutch, and nobody cannot live without someone else. I, Lucy, can live well anywhere, with all this money too. I moved out of the villa quickly. He knew, but never checked in on me. His assistant came by just as I was about to leave. "Lucy, this is from the CEO. Take a look." He handed me a paper. I scanned it briefly. Shares from 2 companies were being transferred to me. He looked a bit emotional. "Lucy, the CEO does care about you." He added that if I wanted, I could stay. But I think Charles is just a hypocritical lunatic. If you really liked me, would you still be hung up on another woman? If you really liked me, wouldn't you come deliver these things yourself? If you really liked me, why would you try to enjoy the best of both worlds with 2 women? A flame of anger rose uncontrollably in my heart. I suddenly remembered that every time we got intimate, Charles would always have me face away from him. Awkward and forced. He lit a cigarette and stared at the ceiling, looking despondent and gloomy. Who's he thinking about? Loving in a mess, clear as day and being a jerk. I glanced at the papers in the assistant's hand and suddenly smiled. "Forget it. Tell your boss we won't know each other from now on." After I got home, I turned off my phone and slept for days. During that time, Charles didn't contact me at all, but David did. He came looking for me a couple of times. "Still not enough sleep? Let's go out and have some fun," he said, smiling at me from the door. I got up from bed, eyes vacant. "Sure." He took me straight to the marriage bureau. I was shocked. "What are you doing?" David looked a bit wronged. "Didn't you say I'd get a reward if I got the job done?" I was even more shocked. "You like me?" We grew up together, even taking baths in the same tub like siblings. I never thought he had feelings for me like this. David looked a bit wronged. "What? You're just now figuring it out?" I sighed. "David, I don't feel that way." I was about to turn and leave when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Lucy?" I froze and turned around, face drained of color. It was Charles. He stood at the entrance of the marriage bureau in a black suit, his expression still indifferent. "Why are you here?" He furrowed his brow, then relaxed, a smirk on his lips. "Regret it?" He thought I was there for him. He ignored David beside me and just stared, casual and dismissive. As if saying, "I knew you'd come crawling back." I felt humiliated. Whether it was pride or not wanting to lose, I took David's hand. "Mr. Charles, could you move? You're blocking the way." Charles's smile froze. "What?" I looked up at him. "What else do you do at a marriage bureau?" Charles's expression didn't change. "Don't think I don't know you're just doing this to get at me, Lucy. I know you too well." I dragged David inside. Charles didn't follow, but I was frustrated because we didn't have the household registration book. It was all for show, but no actual credentials. "No way," David said, pulling 2 little red books from his pocket. "I already talked to your parents." Charles had come with Anna, but they didn't get their papers processed. After the photos, I still felt a bit dazed. It happened so fast, getting married. "What did you say to him just now?" a woman's voice asked. I looked up. It was Anna. Her affectionate eyes were now cold. "Why did he leave?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" Maybe seeing my confusion was genuine, Anna's eyebrows gradually relaxed. She looked at David beside me, then at me. She warned, "Since you've made the choice, don't look back. Charles isn't right for you. Give it up sooner rather than later." I sipped my lips. "Ms. Anna, you're overthinking. Even though I was with him, I won't degrade myself. Once I left, I wouldn't choose to go back." Somehow I tripped Anna's anger button, and she clicked her tongue. "You'd better." She turned and left. It was only when I sat in the car that I remembered. It was Anna who went back to Charles. Charles's pride couldn't have imagined that in a few days, I'd be at the bureau with David. The way he looked at David today was chilling. After spending years with him, I knew it was the sign of his anger. I calmed down and looked at David. "Aren't you afraid Charles will come after you?" David laughed it off, seemingly unworried. "Our family isn't that easy to mess with." He looked down, his eyes deep and dark. "Worried about me?" A rush of unexplained emotion welled up, warming my eyes. I pushed him away, rolling my eyes. "I'd care about a dog before caring for you." I saw Charles again a week later. The lights in the club flickered, and he lounged on a couch, cigarette in hand, emotions unreadable. I had been dragged out by a friend and didn't expect to run into him. So I tried to keep low, avoid attention as much as possible. I thought, Charles is proud. If I stay away, so will he. but he cornered me after all. In the restroom, as soon as I stepped out, my wrist was gripped, and I stumbled, colliding with the wall. He was behind me, pinning my back, his voice husky. Coincidence or on purpose? At the first word, the smell of alcohol filled the air. He was drunk. Charles's grip was never gentle, and my wrist burned with pain, but I was pinned, unable to break free. Hearing his words, I couldn't help but snap. Let go of me. Let go of you. He pressed against me, breath warm on my neck, a bit sinister. Why didn't you say that 3 years ago? I almost gagged. Are you disgusting? I'm already married to someone else, and you're touching me. Do you not have any shame? When in love, give it your all, but when it ends, keep it separate. I've always been straightforward with feelings. Now Charles's actions clearly hit my nerve. He paused, then sounded hurt. You think I'm disgusting? Yes, disgusting. I closed my eyes, stopped struggling. Have you thought about Anna? Whatever I said hit his anger point. He laughed coldly. Anna, is she why you broke up with me? You usually don't care about anything. Why not tolerate her? Charles kissed my ear. Lucy, I know you got married to spite me. Come back, and I'll make it official. You're crazy. Let me go. I suddenly shouted and struggled fiercely. When he didn't let go, I turned, biting his wrist. Charles didn't expect my intense reaction, never seen me this frantic. He quickly pulled back a few steps, releasing me. Covering his almost bit wrist, eyes cold. You bit me? Not just bite, I'd hit you too. Anger surged, and I gritted my teeth. Before he knew it, I slapped him. A sharp slap. Silence spread. Charles got slapped so hard his head turned away, and he stood there stunned for a few seconds. In the long silence, I nursed my tingling hand, staring at him, with my eyes welling up first. A mix of emotions spread through me. The pain of trusting the wrong person, the humiliation of being looked down on, the frustration of being misunderstood, and even a hint of unease. It was the first time I had ever hit Charles. He looked down, his gaze a bit menacing. After a moment, he sneered, look at that, I'm the one who got hit, and you're the one crying. Hearing his voice, I realized tears had unknowingly started falling down my own face. Charles touched his cheek and remarked, crying hard but packing quite a punch. He sighed and raised a finger, seemingly to touch my cheek. Looking at his long fingers reaching out, I couldn't help but feel nauseous. Don't touch her. Before I could react, I saw a fist land on the side of Charles's face, the force of which tousled my hair. Charles hit the ground with a thud. David stood his ground, then turned to look at me, his eyes bloodshot, lips trembling a bit, asking, did he touch you? Suddenly, I realized I married the right person this time. After we got back, I asked David, aren't you worried about Charles getting back at you? His eyes were serious and profound. 3 years ago, I was cowardly and lost you once. This time, now that I finally have you, I won't back down again. Charles hit his head and got a concussion, spending 2 days in the hospital. David's father, upon learning his son hit Charles because of me, frowned tightly and said, good hit. Under Charles's control these years, the company's stocks were high, but his autocratic ways secretly offended many influential people, impacting his family's business to some extent. When Charles proposed going after David's family, several shareholders opposed it. Over the past few years, they'd gathered talent, reaching new heights, nearly breaking into the elite circles. If they were to engage in a business battle, it wouldn't be easy. With a bandaged head in the hospital, Charles smashed his computer in fury and stubbornly continued with his plans. Sam chose then to form an alliance with David's father. He was fed up with Anna and hated Charles. Years ago, he got badly beaten by Charles for saying a word about Anna, even losing a few teeth. At David's home, the gloomy young man leaned against the railing, staring with dark eyes. Lucy, you know why I don't like Anna? She's a bitch, Sam said, gritting his teeth. She used to work at a nightclub. I took her in, supported her, yet she kicked me aside and hooked up with my brother. I was shocked, thinking Anna was wild but had a clean slate. You think she truly loves my brother? Sam asked with a sinister laugh. Anna has had AIDS for a while now. Why do you think she's back? Just to mess with you all, to prove my brother still loves her. My brother's days are probably numbered. That news hit me like a bomb, ringing in my ears and giving me a headache. After Sam left, I stood still until David arrived. Only then did I manage to speak, my throat dry. Take me to the hospital to get tested for AIDS. David frowned. What? I grabbed his arm, tears in my eyes, voice trembling. Anna has AIDS. Luckily, since Anna came back, I hadn't been close with Charles, not even a kiss. The test results came back all clear. I didn't expect to run into Anna at the hospital. With a cigarette dangling from her mouth, she approached me. Wait, let's talk. In the hospital hallway, Anna shared stories from her past. She got into the city from the countryside through her studies, but had no money and got tricked into a nightclub. She was beautiful and fierce, with an aloof attitude despite having no money. Many creeps loved her, afterwards handing her cash while she carried the bruises. She met two important folks. One was Sam, a shy teen, red-faced during his first trip to the nightclub, surrounded by girls. Anna found it amusing and joined in to flirt with him. He asked, "How long you been here? Is this your first time?" She looked into his clear eyes and burst into tears. "First time? It's my first time." The boy panicked, wiping her tears. "Why are you crying?" "I won't touch you." "Scared I'd laugh at you?" "I'll tell you a secret. It's my first time too." Anna laughed. He was such a fool. I wasn't even a newbie, but he believed me. After that, he was incredibly good to her, even wanting to pull her out of that life. But she backed out. The boy was bright like the sun, while she was already in the muck. How could she drag him down with her? She chose someone else, Charles. Back then, Charles wasn't in charge, but he was a prince. Unlike his pure younger brother, he was immersed in vice and debauchery, rotten like her. Anna worked hard to hook him and had a love affair so intense that in the year he loved her the most, she walked away. Anna asked me, "Guess why I left?" I shook my head. "I don't know." Anna laughed. "Because men are just pathetic. If I stayed around, he'd start fancying you. Once I left, he'd think of me forever." "What do you mean he fancied me?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" Anna's face turned cold. "I mean, don't pity Charles. While he was with me, he wanted to marry you. After I left, he plotted your family's downfall just to be with you. Yet over the years, he often thought of me and contacted me. Someone like him doesn't deserve your sympathy." I was stunned. So it was Charles who ruined my family, and he had been scheming all along. Looking back, everything began making sense. Once, while out drinking with Charles, some spoiled brats asked him, "Charles, which woman's perfume do you like the most?" Charles gave me a knowing smile. He said he got used to the heavy scent of roses, but a light whiff in passing could be unforgettable. Back then, I thought he meant I was unique. Looking back now, I guess being around a rose-like beauty like Anna made any other woman he passed feel irresistibly alluring. Caught between taboo and morality, he smoked one cigarette after another late at night, holding Anna in his arms. He wanted me, but couldn't let go of her. Yet, she left, so ruthless, so mature. Charles didn't hesitate to take advantage of me. He got my submissiveness, but couldn't let go of her fieriness, wishing he could have both at once, like having his cake and eating it too. Such shamelessness, such vulgarity, such filth. My expression was stiff, my heart clenched painfully, shifting to a raging fire inside. Anna stubbed out the cigarette. "I kinda envy you sometimes. You've got a good family, good looks, and people who love you. You're nothing like me. I'm dirt on the ground, filthy and cheap." She said that and left, clicking away on her high heels, her slender waist swaying gracefully as always. Suddenly, it all felt absurd and incredibly sickening. I sat back in the car dazed and asked David, was I wrong to agree to Charles? David's solid embrace was the answer I got. The next time I saw Charles was 2 months later. He was in his usual black suit, but it hung off him loosely because he'd gotten so thin. Sitting in a wheelchair, his eyes were gloomy, a far cry from his former powerful self. I didn't know how to face him and turned to leave. He called after me, "Lucy." I paused slightly. He motioned for someone to wheel him over, and up close I could see how pale and hollow-eyed he was. "Anna's gone. I kicked her out," he said. I was silent for a moment, then said, "So, can you come back?" When I didn't answer, he laughed at himself. "Right, why would you come back? You're just like her, using me." Looking at him now, defeated, he seemed to blame us for everything that went wrong. I couldn't help asking, "Don't you think this is your fault?" "What did I do wrong?" Charles said darkly. "If it weren't for me, Anna would have been ruined, and your family would never have made a comeback." I swallowed my anger and demanded, "Didn't you cause the trouble for my family in the first place?" He was like a devil who destroyed everything, but then showed up as my savior when I was at my lowest. Charles looked incredulously at me. "You found out?" Seeing I didn't respond, his eyes turned cold, snake-like. "Did Anna tell you? That bitch gave me AIDS and ruined my reputation. I'll kill her." Strangely, in that moment, I thought of Anna's face. Did she love Charles? Maybe she did, but he let her down. I loved him too, and I was used. People like Charles never understand what love is. I coldly shot back, "Why don't you think about whether you'll live long enough to kill?" No need to say more to a dying man, so I turned and walked away. But Charles, like he'd lost his mind, shouted after me, "Lucy, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. Turn around, look at me. Will you come back, please? Lucy, I'll really treat you well. I'll marry you, make you my wife." When I didn't waver, his pleas turned into endless insults. "You're just like Anna, both of you bitches. You deceived me, you ruined me. I'll kill you both." Someone so close to death, their throat threats are weak, almost laughable. Turning a corner, I bumped into someone, a familiar embrace, a familiar voice. What's wrong? I looked up and complained, Charles is crazy. David patted my head. Let's get you something to eat. Passing the hospital entrance, I glimpsed Sam. He was driving a car for a woman, no trace of gloom on his face. One of her legs outstretched, long and fair, wearing a princess dress, not Anna. David seemed to catch my thought. Anna committed suicide. She was in the late stage. Took her own life last week. I fell silent, remembering how recently I'd seen Anna. Without her, I wouldn't have known Charles's true colors. But watching Sam over there, smiling slightly, I felt a bit sad. He found someone new so fast. After a moment of silence, David turned to look at me, his amber eyes soft and sincere. I'll always stay for you. I blinked. I know. Because I know you'll stay, I'll always have somewhere to fall back on, no matter what I do. From now on, no matter how daunting the road ahead, I've got nothing to fear.